Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Before we start, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. But if you stick around, there might be some cookies and cake in your near future. Alright, our first story today comes to us from FMLitsSML. Angry director gets her comeuppance in 4 gradual actions. Let's jump right in. Several years ago, I used to work at an agency that hired us out as short-term temporary workers and contractors. These jobs pretty much consisted of stuff that company employees couldn't be bothered to do, and so got someone in to sort it out. It wasn't great, but I had to make ends meet. Anyway, one of these jobs was for 150 hours at 5 weeks of office administration. There wasn't much more information to go on, but a job's a job. The office turned out to be quite a small, stuffy little building at the back of an industrial estate. I was told to report to Beryl. When I turned up, I was met by a rather grumpy-looking old lady having a cigarette by the front door. This was Beryl. Beryl didn't even say hello or ask me my name, but showed me in, pointed at an enormous pile of boxes full of paperwork, saying, "This all needs to be scanned in. There are 2 scanners connected to a computer there. Off you go. Let someone know if you need help." So off I went. That pile of boxes was to be my job for the next month and a bit. Joy. The office was predominantly young men, with Beryl being the only other woman. She was in her late 50s and spent more time smoking than working, and without being rude, clearly didn't look after herself. It was quite flattering to have a bunch of these guys pop by my workstation for a chat occasionally. After a few days of scanning, Beryl visited my cubicle. She wasn't happy that I spent too much time talking and not enough time working. I was confused. While I didn't have any metrics or targets, I was pretty consistently working through this mountain of paperwork. I got the impression that Beryl didn't like the attention I was getting. I pointed out to her that I haven't left my desk apart from to go to the toilet. If someone's over here to talk to me, then that's fine, as I can talk and scan at the same time, like I'm doing right now. She wasn't happy and turned away, calling out, "Just do your job," as she left. Some of the other guys had heard this and they popped by my desk later and said not to worry. They'd had agency staff before, and Beryl always hated it if a young woman arrived because she was grumpy and jealous. Not my words. In fact, a few years ago, one young woman had left the office in tears because Beryl had tore her a new one for going to lunch with some of the other guys. Naturally, this annoyed me, particularly because Beryl thought she could bully and disrespect agency staff. And I certainly wasn't going to leave the job because of an angry bee. Malicious compliance number 1. For the rest of my time there, I made sure to get dressed up. Makeup, curls, a midi office dress, stiletto heels. When Beryl saw me clicking my way down the office the next day, fully dressed up just to scan some paperwork, she scowled at me but didn't say anything. The next week, Beryl took some time out of her busy smoking schedule to visit me in my cubicle. The second time she'd done so since I started. Some of the paperwork I was scanning in had been stapled together, so I'd asked someone in the office for a staple remover and a stapler. I used to pull out the staple, scan the document, rename it on the computer, then restaple it and put back in the box. I was just pulling a staple out when Beryl walked by. Beryl's first words to me were, "What are you doing?" I replied that this document was stapled, and if I put it in the machine, it'd jam. She raised her voice slightly and said, "Nobody told you to do that. Just scan each page in separately. Leave the papers alone." I could almost hear her eye roll as she walked away. Malicious compliance number 2, so I did. Scanned everything with staples just folded over, and then created folders called document 123, and each scan went in as 123 page 1.pdf, 123 page 2.pdf, you get the idea. This slowed me down a lot, but hey, it's what I was asked to do. At some point, Beryl walked by and saw me flipping pages like that. I'd put my hair in a bun and taken my heels off, and she smirked. She thought she'd flustered me, and that I didn't see her reaction. Don't worry, Beryl, you didn't, and I did. The paperwork I was scanning in was boxed up as newest first, so as I got to some of the older papers, these had been moved around a couple of times and were slightly scrunched up or folded or similar. A jammed scanner wasn't an issue, it had happened a handful of times before, but as I got to the older papers, the jams became more frequent. It was easy to sort through, just open the back door of the scanner, roll out the paper, cancel the job, and redo it. At this point, I'd gone back to unstapling and restapling because Beryl had given me some space thinking she'd broken me, and I just wanted to get the job done so I could leave. Beryl walked in one day. This would have been my 4th week there. She saw me unjamming the scanner and flipped her top. She yelled, "SML, what are you doing?" At this point, all heads in the office turned to where we were. I calmly told her, "The scanner's jammed, I'm just pulling the paper out so I can rescan it. Shouldn't take more than a few minutes." She continued yelling, "At no point were you instructed to perform IT repairs. We have someone for that. Stop what you're doing and get someone to help you. I asked you this when you started. Why can't you follow simple instructions?" It took a lot of patience not to argue back with her, which I thought was what she wanted. But I said, "Okay, fine. Can I speak to the IT guy to sort this out?" I couldn't have choreographed her response better. I then knew that she did want me to argue so she could kick me out, because she hesitated and said, well, the IT guy is off for the rest of the week." This was a Thursday. Use the other scanner. If you jam it, let me know," and stormed off. Malicious compliance number 3. I knew her diary and knew she was off the next day, Friday. I carried on with the one scanner, making sure it didn't jam that day, and waited until the next morning. Coincidentally, the scanner jammed on the first piece of paper I fed into it. Who'd have thought? Obviously, I rang Beryl. She didn't answer her phone, and as she wasn't in the office, I spent the day sat around without much to do. Whilst talking to the guys in the office, I learned that the company had been bought by a much larger IT firm, and they just wanted the rights to the proprietary software that they had developed. It also turned out that the CEO of the small company basically paid himself into retirement and appointed Beryl as the director. Beryl knew that her days were numbered, so she was even more bitter to the staff. The guys working there had been committed various levels of careers within the new IT firm, which they were happy with. As I was told, 120,000 employees, 30 dev roles are easy to find. One director role is not. Anyway, when we returned on Monday, you could almost see the vein in her neck throbbing. She wasted an entire day of whatever her company paid my agency because little old me wasn't trusted to fix a paper jam. I used to get in a little later than the rest of the staff, agency perks, woo! But when I got in, she'd had the IT champion perform the skilled job of opening a scanner and pulling a piece of paper out. She didn't even look at me when she said, "Scanners are fixed, get on with your job and don't mess around." At this point, you may be thinking, SML, this is a lot of text for some pretty trivial malicious compliance. Well, you'll like the final part. My last week there coincided with a new contract that the company had been given by their new owners. I assume it was some sort of litmus test. Whilst I don't pretend to understand what it was, the job involved a lot of scanning documents that had been handwritten. Hooray, more boxes! At the same time, a few of the guys who worked there were going on a visit to the new parent company, which were based in the USA. I live in the UK. The IT champion was one of these guys who went. When the boxes were delivered to my cubicle, Beryl popped in and said, "These take priority. All of what I said to you is more important than ever. Do not mess around, otherwise you're out the door. Am I clear?" Yes, ma'am. The paperwork delivered was from the USA. Our paper sizes are different. The first piece of paper I fed into the scanner jammed it, a safety lock, because it expected A4 and got US letter instead. I jammed both scanners. Beryl, not being one to turn down a free trip to America, had gone with them. I rang her at 11 a.m. UK time, which was 5 a.m. their time. She picked up and was not impressed. I felt sorry for the folks adjacent to her hotel room when she screamed down the phone, "You've done what? How? Why?" I told her about the USA paperwork. "Can you not fix it?" Final malicious compliance. "No, you've told me many times that I can't fix these machines. What's the business continuity plan?" Side note, my brother told me that phrase and he still doesn't quite understand why I turned up to his house a bit later with a few pizzas and a box of beer. Beryl had no idea what to do. She was clearly flustered. "Can you just do what you can? We need this done." "What would you want me to do?" "Can you fix the scanners because this is really important?" "I'm sorry, you told me I can't do that. I need simple instructions to work with." "Just fix it." "I'd be happy to show an IT specialist where the scanners are if you can get them here to fix." "Hang up tone." Well, that's that then. I spend the rest of the week chatting to my colleagues, updating my CV, and applying for jobs. Nobody turned up to fix the scanners. When my final week finished, I said bye to the guys I'd worked with, wished them luck, and left with none of the critical paperwork scanned in. When Beryl got back from her business trip, I learned that she'd spent one day at the parent company and left it to the other guys. When the crap hit the fan because nothing was being delivered, they wondered where she was. This was day 2 into the 5-day business trip. She was at a spa, phone switched off. She flew out early on day 5 without seeing any of her colleagues or the parent company. I kept in touch with a few of the guys afterwards. After this, the dev guys were transferred contracts to the larger IT firm. They all got a very small salary increase, but were also able to work from home. This was pre-COVID, so it was a bit of a rarity back then. Beryl, meanwhile, didn't fare so well. She was initially offered redundancy, paid, including pension deals, but when someone complained that she'd not been present for the meetings, which I think was their IT champion, they found out she'd been sightseeing, shopping, tanning, and getting her hair done on company time. She ended up being fired. No bonus, no pension, nothing. I quit the agency not long afterwards, and after 1 or 2 moves, ended up in a job I'm very happy with. The agency were none the wiser about any of this. They just wanted their money, and aside from one initial checkup call, left me to it. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Harry Monk. It says, "She'd have got her pension when she reached the right age though, surely. In the UK, they don't just get to fire you and steal your pension. It's part of her compensation." This was responded to by another user called Pixeltash. It says, "Guessing she would have got early retirement and started getting her company pension early. This is what she lost. Because she didn't work to pension age and didn't get early retirement, she would have lost a big old chunk of her company pension. She would still get her state pension and whatever private company pension she had paid into when she turned 65. I think that commenter missed that this was in the UK, but that's okay because it's probably the same over there as well. From what I've heard about labor laws over in the UK and how that all works, it's a lot better than it is over here in Canada and the USA. Over here, they really have us over a barrel. Our next story today comes to us from ExWallStreetGuy. I cost Bank of America $8,000 legally. Let's jump right in. A bit of context, I've been in the mortgage and related businesses for over 30 years. I know it very well. I've never liked Bank of America, especially their servicing division. This story happened a few years ago. I just found out about this group. I refinanced my mortgage through a mortgage broker, and to my aggravation, they sold the servicing rights to Bank of America. The entity that owns your loan is usually different than the one that you pay to service the loan. I was miffed. I estimated that a Bank of America paid $5,000 to service my loan, as most folks at the time expect loans to stay on the books at least 3 years. Another little fact, mortgage services are paid 0.25% fixed, 0.375% adjustable of your outstanding loan balance per year. It comes out of the interest you pay to the bank. If you want to know how much your servicer got any particular month, use the formula service pay equals current loan balance times 0.25% over 12. About 2 months after the servicing switched, Bank of America announced they'd be charging a $5 fee for the convenience to pay the mortgage online. Truly an unwarranted money grab. I'm blessed that I can put a little extra towards my mortgage payment every month. So the following month, I took out my mortgage payment plus $400 in quarters from my local bank. I then went to my local Bank of America branch and handed them my mortgage payment in quarters and repayment stub. I asked for a receipt of payment. I overpaid my mortgage to reduce the current balance and thereby reducing Bank of America's fees. The nice branch manager said, "You can write a check, you don't have to pay in coins." I said I could, but I would charge a $9.50 convenience fee for the stamp, my check, and ink used. The branch manager actually laughed and said, "Okay." They counted the money and I got my receipt. Next month, the charge was still there. So I went to another local Bank of America branch, which had gotten bad reviews on Yelp due to a hostile bank manager. I did the same thing. The branch manager said, "Write a check, we don't accept quarters." I said, "Shall I call the local state's banking commissioner, the Consumer Financial Protection Board, and the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, the US top bank regulator, and say you won't accept legal tender?" I asked to talk to the district manager. I was making a stink. After about 20 minutes, he grudgingly had the staff count the quarters, and I got a receipt. I told the manager that I would be bringing dimes next time. The next month, I brought dimes. He accepted them but glared at me the whole time. After that payment, Bank of America rescinded their convenience fee. The month after that, I refinanced my mortgage at a lower rate. Bank of America only got roughly 6 months of fees for servicing they expected to last 3 years at a minimum, 5 years to be profitable. One of my proudest malicious compliance moments. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Mayday Voter 11. It says, "Someone in the mortgage industry once told me that the big banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, etc. hate their mortgage business, but they don't want to get rid of it, so they take their frustration out on the borrower." Not sure if that's actually true, but every mortgage horror story I've heard like this involved a big bank like Bank of America or Wells Fargo. OP responded to this one and said, "Hate is too strong a word, but it is a burden for them. Now, most mortgages are serviced by non-bank servicers like New Residential, Mr. Cooper, Freedom Mortgage, and etc. Should mortgages have a serious increase in delinquencies, these companies go down, and oh boy, that'll be a mess for the US economy." So going back to OP paying in coins, because I'm really not up on all this mortgage talk, but up here in Canada, you can't actually do that. So there are laws here on how many coins you can pay with of any specific denomination. Now, that being said, if you walked into a bank here and said, "I want to pay my mortgage with all of these coins," they could say, "I'm sorry, I can only take so many of them." But if you walked into the bank and said, "Hi, I'd like to make a deposit of all these coins to my account," well, there's nothing they could do about that. Just something I thought I'd pass on to my Canadian listeners because you never know when you're going to need it. Check out both OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.